Hi, good evening. On day 92 of our 99 days. Today I want to talk a little bit about actually what happens after these 99 days. How you, um, well, what actually are I could say, the new basics of living more awakened. And the process that has been started will continue, hopefully, and most surely. I mean, you cannot look different at things anymore once you've seen it. You cannot deny connected to yourself, your essence, if you have been connected to that space. So that's a continuum that will deepen and will expand, and you might be open to more challenges for change, or new desires come up, or whatever is going to change in your life. And I noticed with myself, and I also got a beautiful question today, that kind of like, um, it's like a refining process every time. So today, the question that was asked to me was, how do you deal with the feeling of being left out? And I haven't looked at it that way yet. So I was wondering, actually, because I do recognize the feeling of being left out. And then I suddenly um, analyzed, actually, with myself what it is that I'm doing, uh, quite rapidly, actually, nowadays. And it is that I've shared about this before, about objectifying actually what's happening in your life, to not get into it too deeply in a personalized way. So what helps me when I have this feeling of being left out, then it helps me to just ask, what is my role here? In what role do I feel left out? We all know that we have different roles in life. I mean, our identity is based upon different roles. You are a parent, or you are a partner of, or you are a child, or you are a sibling to someone else, or you are a friend, or, well, you're a colleague. We all have different roles. And the feeling of being left out is not always related to all these roles at the same time. It can appear in different situations and in different roles, but when it appears in the moment, it happens. It's related to one specific situation. So to me, then it happens that no, it helps that I just analyze what kind of role it is. For instance, if I feel left out because of something that happens with my ex and has to do with my children, then I feel left out in the role as a mother, or in the role as an ex of. And then that actually kind of takes me out of this situation, because I immediately also feel that in other areas of my life I don't feel left out. And then I go into this gratitude or gratefulness to what I do have, and where I do feel connected to others, and where I do feel connected to myself in the first place. And that really helps to release the intensity of that moment. And then I can still feel what happens. It's not that I ignore what's happening. So it's not the indifference here what I'm talking about. It's more like um, isolating it, or minimalize it to one certain role. Otherwise, you have the chance that you actually would immediately think like, well, everything, I'm feel left out completely in life. No one really wants me, or I don't fit in, or whatever story comes up in your mind. And then it only gets bigger than actually the actual fact when it happened. So then when it happens, it's still like, still the question arises like, am I really left out? Am I really ignored here by the others? And do I have to take action to step up for myself? Or is it an interpretation of the situation? And should I just be okay with it, and just try to see a different perspective to the same situation? And it's just my sensitivity. Um, so it's just a little bit analysis, actually, that I'm doing. And that goes quite rapidly. It's not that I'm sitting like, okay, this is my role and this is what happened. It's more, yeah, it goes more like, nowadays more automatically. Like, okay, this is about my role here. And in general, it really helps to think in roles to get less attached to your identity. So to think in roles like almost like you are in a play, being the actor, taking on different roles if you're in different place, playing. And then you can just see yourself or feel that in one role you can act differently than in the other role. And in the role with your partner, for instance, you can be more vulnerable. I mean, you can be vulnerable in any role, but that's more easy then because that's really the safest place, hopefully. And when you are in the role of a colleague, you might just be still compassionate, but take a little bit more distant there. So it depends on which role you are, how it affects you, and how you get triggered. And the other thing that also helps if you're thinking roles is that you can see where actually your tension still is. Um, because if you get really sensitive about anything that happens at work, either positive, negative, or very neutral in the sense like nothing interests you anymore, you really are not excited anymore at all, and you're not even triggered anymore. You really are getting into this space of pure boredom. Then it might just then you can really think about, okay, what is happening actually in that role there? Because like I shared yesterday, it's about being balanced in all areas in life. And all these different areas, you play different roles. So yeah, try to take this during the daily events or weekly events that are happening, and just get more. Every time it is about getting more sensitive in the sense that you pick up your senses quicker. That what's happening within your system actually, because that's actually the process. I mean, I know I started always with like it starts with a thought and then a feeling and then an action. But as we are really energetic beings, we already pick up in the field everything that's happening. And that's actually, so we're already picking up the senses first, and that's translated in a thought. That's translated in a feeling, but a feeling is different than picking up a sense that's happening in the field. So we might feel uncomfortable or tensed or contracted in our body. Then a thought comes up, and then that's translated into a feeling of I feel really uncomfortable or sad or tensed or contracted or and then you create this story what's actually happening. So we are really we start really with feeling things, even though we think we are thinking beings, but we are really we start with feeling. um, but there are different nuances between sensing, feeling, and the emotions that come with feelings. So these different nuances depends on where you pick it up. Is like really what how you deal with it or how you translate it into in your mind, because that's where the translation happens always. Yeah. So that was more like an example. This feeling of being left out, and the same goes with when you feel rejected or when you feel jealous or when you feel um, well, when you have this power play by someone else or when you feel ignored. It's all kind of the same process, that you can look at your role and try to isolate it to that role, and then make the story bigger than just that event. And the other thing that came up today, because I was looking through my old notes in my phone, and there was a nice exercise actually that I did about 2 years ago, or I've written down 2 years ago, and that is more being more depersonalizing actually a belief that's in you within you. So the exercise was from my belief believes something about yourself. So I believe, or my belief believes that I am insecure in talking to people, or my belief believes that I'm insecure when I have to speak up in a meeting. at work because that makes me feel insecure, and I want to be perfect there because I don't want to risk failure, or for instance. So this exercise, my belief beliefs, helps to just really phrase actually what it actually is that's the lack belief within you. And I know this comes rather late at day 92, but still, it might now help because you have more clear idea of these lack beliefs to just state them once again. What are actually your core lack beliefs? And they're probably not more than 3 to 5 maximum, most likely. And then rewrite them in this way: my belief beliefs. And you will notice if you write it down like that, and if you read it again over the coming days and read it back, and then you kind of like you have this reaction: do I really believe that? Because it doesn't really make sense. It's as if you're talking about another person. As someone says to you, like, I'm not really good at that, and then you can look at that person: you're great at doing that. That's just your belief. So if you write that about yourself and about your beliefs in this way, my belief beliefs, then you get this same kind of feeling like being the outsider looking at yourself. And I was looking at my beliefs, and I haven't written that down here, so I can't repeat them. But I was really like, no, oh, that's interesting. I really did believe that, but I cannot even imagine I'm believing it still. So and of course, this was 2 years ago when I wrote them down. But even within this 92 days, I've already shared some of these beliefs, and now they kind of feel like they've gone over this period of these 90 days because of my practices with you, because of other things I've picked up. So it is really shifting, and and hopefully, perhaps you have made notes. Looking back at the early beginning of these 90 days, you might have written down some of the lack beliefs. I think it was in week 1 we talked about that already. And you might look at it again and think like, I'm not so sure if I still have that lack belief in that sense. It might have a different nuance. So try to, and if you haven't made a note, that's fine. But at least what comes up for you today, what's still like very clear to you, that's still a lack belief. Rewrite it in this way: my belief beliefs. And yeah, like I said, it's probably no more than 3 to 5. Or there are subversions of the same lack belief, but then try to really pin it down into one sentence what's really the core of that lack belief. Because the differences are probably mostly like different situations. So I could say, like, I have a lack belief on speaking on stage for thousands of people, or I could say I have a lack belief of um, not being able to perform in front of the camera. I mean, it's kind of the same lack belief. With sharing myself out there and being afraid of having comments about what I'm sharing, and being afraid of sharing my wisdom, and people might criticize that, as an example. And that was definitely a very huge lack belief, and it still is like, it still has tension. So, like 2 days ago, I think I shared it already. I started sharing new posts on my personal page on Facebook. And it really is different than sharing with you in these 99 days, because this group feels safe. And sharing it out there feels a little bit less safe because a lot of people are in the same, a lot of my Facebook friends are in the same communities. And well, we all share kind of the same wisdom. So I noticed that I want to be more precise, and I'm less doing it from coming from, yeah, like I do the sessions here. I'm just sitting here, and then something comes up and I talk. So it feels a little bit different. So it's a new challenge there, really, to speak as freely as I can speak here, or write as freely as I could do with you. Um, so if the interesting thing about what I'm doing now on my Facebook timeline is that try to do it as short as possible. So try to rephrase actually what we have been talked about here in really short messages. So to get to the core of it, and not obviously not all these 90 days, but just I like to make a series of 20 or 30 or something, and see how people react. Interesting enough, I had already my first request for a coaching session from somebody who has been following me and who knows me actually privately as well, but I hardly ever talk to her. And she requested for a talk this week, so for a free consultation. So it really helps to share myself out there differently than I've done so far on my private account. Anyway, that's aside from what I'm sharing here with you. Got a little bit distracted. And actually, I don't really have much more to talk about today. I felt like really empty today. And no more questions came up from your side yet. So, and this question I just shared about came from another direction, another input outside this group. So I thought it was good to share here as well. Feeling left out is I think it's a feeling that we all recognize in certain situations. Okay, so I'll leave it for today. Keep it a bit short, and I'll see you back tomorrow. And I still hope to receive more input from you guys, so I can refine these last week to your request as much as possible. Okay, thanks for watching. See you back tomorrow.